This video is brought to you by the WinX DVD Ripper. Stay tuned to find out how you could win $2,000 worth of prizes, including a PlayStation 5 plus tons of Marvel and DC goodies. Hey heroes, I'm Josh from Panels to Pixels, and recently I've been playing a comic book game that lets you take control of some of your favourite Marvel superheroes, level them up, defeat wave after wave of generic enemy types, and scoop up precious loot. No, not Marvel's Avengers, you silly goose. I'm talking about X-Men Legends. I love this game, truly, madly, deeply, I do. Released in 2004 for the PlayStation 2, Xbox and GameCube, X-Men Legends is an action RPG from a bygone era of superhero games. Launching alongside titles like Spider-Man 2, The Punisher, and The Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction, this was the golden age of licensed Marvel titles. Back before these comic book characters became the most valuable properties on God's green earth, to be closely guarded by their corporate custodians. Hot dog! There were no shoehorned references to the MCU, no 18GB day one patches, and there were certainly no microtransactions. Already that should tell you everything you need to know about why X-Men Legends is one of the most lovingly crafted, content-rich, and comic book faithful X-Men experiences ever put on disc. But if you want to know more, stick around, let's get to know each other. Do you love superhero movies? Oh my god, me too! And thanks to WinX DVD Ripper, you can win up to $2,000 worth of really awesome prizes, just by telling us what upcoming Marvel or DC movies you're most excited for. All you have to do is head to the link in the description of this video, or in the comments below, vote for your most anticipated superhero movies, and you could win a PS5, an Iron Man helmet, I want one of those, plus Marvel and DC Funko Pops, action figures, and much more. In addition to that, every single participant will get a free WinX DVD Ripper license, so you can back up all your favourite superhero movies quickly, easily, and at the highest quality. With WinX DVD Ripper, you can convert your DVDs to digital files, including MP4, AVI, and more with just one click. So what are you waiting for? Go vote for the superhero movies you're most excited to see and win some prizes. Okay, so X-Men Legends is the often overlooked progenitor of the Marvel Ultimate Alliance series, which, as of its third installment last year, is one of the longest running and most beloved superhero gaming franchises ever made. These Diablo-style dungeon-crawling role-playing games task you with putting together a team of up to 4 comic book heroes, before hacking and slashing your way through more crowded corridors than a Tory-funded NHS hospital. If you're at all familiar with the Ultimate Alliance games, then the good news is that you'll be right at home with X-Men Legends. Everything great about that series is present here, right from the start, and it's kind of amazing how developer Raven Software nailed the team-based superhero experience on their first attempt.
The kid's got potential. Indeed.
The game follows the story of Alison Crestmere, a young mutant with the ability to generate lava, otherwise known as
Magma. An excellent choice. Welcome to the X-Men, Magma.
While she may not be anywhere near as recognizable as the likes of Wolverine, Cyclops, or Storm, Magma did in fact originate in the pages of Marvel Comics. Created by Chris Claremont, Sal Buscema, and Bob McLeod, and first appearing in New Mutants issue 8 in 1983, the character was chosen as the main character in X-Men Legends because of her lack of mainstream exposure or clear comic book storyline. In other words, she provides the perfect blank slate onto which players can project themselves. This idea of a young mutant who is wrestling with their newly acquired powers serving as the POV character for the audience as they step into the weird and wonderful world of Marvel's Merry Mutants has almost become a cliche at this point. In the 80s comics there was Kitty Pryde, in the 90s animated series we had Jubilee, and in the first X-Men movie it was Anna Paquin's Rogue. More recently, we've seen another comic book game employing the same trope, with Kamala Khan getting to grips with her superheroic skills while joining the ranks of Marvel's Avengers. But oh boy, I'll be talking more about that game in a future video. X-Men Legends plot was penned by Man of Action, a consortium of accomplished comic book writers including the likes of Joe Kelly, Joe Casey, Duncan Rouleau, and Stephen T. Siegel, all 4 of whom had previously worked on various X-books over at Marvel Comics. The way that X-Men Legends harnesses all of that comic book expertise is one of its greatest strengths. By cherry-picking the best elements from the X-Men's at the time 40-year history, the writers were able to craft a totally unique story that still feels like it belongs to the same universe as the comics. It's full of deep-cut references and enough fan service to keep even the most ardent of mutant maniacs happy. But at the same time, X-Men Legends serves as a great primer for anybody encountering these characters for the first time. I often talk about the Marvel Ultimate Alliance games as playable encyclopedias of the Marvel Universe, and this feels like its own dedicated handbook to the world of the X-Men. I'm particularly impressed by the interactions between characters, which feature optional dialogue choices that give you more information on certain heroes, their backstories, their powers, and just how they fit into this crazy ongoing soap opera. Never heard of Jean Grey? Well, don't worry, because one of the other students at Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters will recount the entire Dark Phoenix saga storyline in less than 150 words during a casual conversation on the school grounds. There is so much attention to detail here, and all of this great dialogue is well served by the game's first-class voice cast, which includes the first appearance of Steve Blum as Wolverine, who would go on to become one of the defining voices for the character, as well as legendary stage and screen actor Sir Patrick Stewart, who reprises his role of Professor Charles Xavier from the movies.
Hello, Allison. Welcome to the Institute. How are you?
A little confused, but I'm okay.
That's understandable. Perhaps Jean could take you on a tour of the mansion, or would you prefer that I show you the true purpose of the Institute in the sub-basement?
You gotta say no, no, no. No, no, no. No, no, no. There may be danger.
Our pyroclastic protagonist is voiced by Cree Summer, who, even if you don't know her by name, you will no doubt recognise her distinctive voice from kids' cartoons of the 80s and 90s, such as Rugrats, Inspector Gadget, and Tiny Toon Adventures, just to name a few.
That lava in the street? I made it happen. I'm becoming a mutant.
There's nothing wrong with...
And that woman? She was gonna make me join something called the Brotherhood. She could come after me again. Anytime!
Allison, you couldn't be in safer hands. We're the X-Men.
One of the first things you might notice when booting up X-Men Legends is just how fantastic it looks, even today. The cel-shaded graphics further cement the game as a true comic book experience. It's just one of many reasons I find myself going back to the X-Men Legends series over the Ultimate Alliance games, and why I was so thrilled when Ultimate Alliance 3 returned to this cartoony style. The character models all look really great too, and the game's designers did a fantastic job at differentiating each individual X-Men through their designs, their poses, and their animations. Hardcore X-nerds might notice that the Children of the Atom are depicted as they were in the Ultimate series of comics, decked out in black leather and surly expressions. This was the default look for the X-Men throughout the 2000s, as exemplified by the early Fox movies, and, well, some of the later Fox movies. To be totally honest, I didn't dig this look at the time, and I really don't like it now. As a die-hard X-Men the Animated Series nut back in the day, I was so disappointed that you didn't start the game playing as Wolverine in his iconic yellow and blues, or for that matter as any of the other characters in their recognisable regalia made famous by artists like John Byrne or Jim Lee. And while there are some classic comic book costumes to be unlocked, they're only available once you've completed the entire game, which, that kind of sucks, right? Fortunately, you do get a chance to play as the team in their old school garb through flashback missions that depict Professor Xavier's students in their formative years. Now, I love these sections. It's like getting to play interactive versions of some of the most famous X-Men comic books. Alright, let's talk about gameplay. As is the case with the Marvel Ultimate Alliance series that followed it, some will find the kind of angled, overhead, not quite isometric camera angle a little frustrating. I have to admit, even having sunk hundreds of hours into these Marvel dungeon crawlers, I sometimes still find myself fighting against the fixed perspective, and wishing I could just tilt up to see more of the environment ahead. But once you're more or less adjusted to the vertigo-inducing viewpoint, you'll soon lose yourself in the button-mashing hack-and-slash action. With a predictable pairing of light and heavy attacks that can be stringed together to form combos, the combat here is as fluid and as fully formed as it ever was in the Marvel Ultimate Alliance games. The only feature I found I was missing from later titles in the series was the ability to block, which is an essential part of conquering Ultimate Alliance, particularly on the hardest difficulties. Instead, X-Men Legends provides you with a grapple and throw, which I found myself relying on more and more as the game progressed. Crowd control is such a huge part of the combat in this game, and throwing one enemy aside to focus your efforts on another, or hurling your foes into each other for maximum stun damage is an easy way to get the upper hand in a fight. Which is a relief, trust me, because this game can be punishingly difficult at times. especially if you don't take the time to learn its systems and mechanics. As you progress through the story, you'll earn different gear as well as skill points that can be spent upgrading certain powers and abilities. These range from intrinsic abilities such as Wolverine's healing factor to devastating special moves that can easily clear a room full of goons. If RPG stuff isn't your bag, you might be tempted to select the option that automatically assigns these points, but I would strongly advise against doing that. You see, each X-Man has a number of different superpowers that can be upgraded, but you can only have up to 4 active at any one time. So if you automatically assign those skill points, spreading them evenly across all powers, you may find that your favourite heroes have become jacks of all trades, but masters of none. And with no option to reassign those points once they've been spent, the game becomes almost impossible to beat. My advice is to specialise your characters. Spend your points tactically and focus on building a well-rounded team, with a mix of heavy tank characters who can absorb a lot of damage, support characters such as those with ranged abilities, and then your frontline offensive heroes who aren't afraid to get up close and personal. This is something that I had to learn through trial and error, restarting the game several times until I found the best combinations of heroes and how to spend my upgrade points. Now, that might sound like a tedious process, but the truth is the actual moment-to-moment gameplay of wailing on bad guys just isn't really the point of this game. It's not a combat system you can master like, say, the Batman Arkham games. The fun in X-Men Legends is getting to know each character's strengths and weaknesses, and putting together a team that both exploits those strengths and suits your personal playstyle. The game's designers clearly put so much thought into how each character's abilities best represent their comic book counterparts. There are even environmental puzzles that can only be solved by specific characters, such as Iceman's ice bridges. It's this focus on unity and teamwork that really gets to the heart of what the X-Men are all about. And it achieves this not by telling you, but through its innate game design, which is kind of amazing when you think about it. I myself am not much of an RPG guy, but I find myself getting seriously addicted to the level of customization afforded to team and character building in this game. The roster of playable characters is a who's who of mutant A-listers. In addition to Magma, you have Wolverine, Storm, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Gambit, Rogue, Beast, Jubilee, Colossus, Psylocke, Iceman, Emma Frost, Nightcrawler, and even Professor Xavier himself. While at first it can be tempting to build your team exclusively with heavy hitters like Cyclops or Wolverine, you'll soon find that success relies upon a more varied approach. Which again, that perfectly distills the whole ethos of the X-Men, strength in diversity. That's how you make a good video essay, by the way. You just put the words that you've said on screen to make them seem more important than they actually are. Your adventure will take you on a road trip of famous locations from the comics, from the streets of New York City to the Morlock tunnels below, as well as Muir Island, Asteroid M, and of course the X-Mansion itself. One thing that puts a huge smile on my face is that you can explore all of the main X-Men's dorm rooms, with each furnished with references and Easter eggs to the characters and their comic book histories. There are plenty of collectibles along the way too, including comic books, sketchbooks, and Danger Room discs that unlock extra missions to be completed in the X-Men's holographic training facility. Some of these are kind of tricky to find and aren't accessible after you finish the game, so I recommend making a backup save just before the final mission if you're a completionist like me. Looking back at X-Men Legends, it's just kind of incredible that it ever got made in the first place, let alone spawned a series of games that have endured for over a decade. You just didn't often see this level of care on display in a licensed superhero game back in the day, or let's be honest, even now. And when you think about Legends as a kind of uber nerdy, deep RPG, gloomy dungeon crawler, this isn't the most accessible game type for casual X-Men fans. But the fact that this relatively niche gameplay is propped up by the X-Men characters, their world and their stories, it just elevates the whole experience to something that is greater than the sum of its parts. It was the attention to detail and high production value that made X-Men Legends a hit with fans and critics back in 2004, and nostalgia aside, I think it holds up really, really well. So if you're eager to step into the roles of the uncanny upholders of equality and justice, you need look no further than X-Men Legends, the best X-Men video game. If you love comic books, video games, 90s superhero cartoons, and other rad stuff like that, then you have come to the right place. Make sure you subscribe to Panels to Pixels and give that bell icon a little ring-a-ding-ding so you never miss out on future videos. Also, let me know in the comments if you played X-Men Legends back in the day and what you thought of it. I can talk about this game all day, so let's continue the conversation down below. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!